another sew along. I am going to be doing view B of my latest spring pattern for simplicity 8341. Now, if you're new to sewing, you can sign up for my online sewing class at sewitacademy.com, or if you need a refresher course, you can link the basics video linked in the description box below. Follow that and then come and sew with me. Now let's go over the tools and pattern pieces you're going to need. Now in the back of the envelope, you will notice at the top you have a list of fabric suggestions, and then down below, according to your size, a list of fabric yardage needed for view B. You're also going to need, of course, a pair of scissors, one for paper, one for your fabric, coordinating thread. You're going to need 9 1/2-inch buttons and some bias tape. Now we're going to go over the pieces you need to cut out of your pattern. Okay, you're going to need to cut out pattern piece number 4, which is the front. You're going to cut out pattern piece number 8, which is the back. Pattern piece number 15, which is our sleeve band. Pattern piece number 7, which is the yoke front. Pattern piece number 10, our pocket. Pattern piece number 5, which is our upper ruffle. And pattern piece number 6, which is our lower ruffle. You're going to cut out pattern piece number 14, which is our sleeve. Pattern piece number 13, which is our collar. Pattern piece number 12, which is the neckband. And lastly, you're going to cut out pattern piece number 11, which is our placket. You will also notice that there is a fold line where you're going to interface. So you're going to need to cut out a 1-inch strip, the length of this pattern piece, so that you can interface this section of your fabric. Okay, I want you to go ahead and grab pattern piece number 4, which is the front of our dress, and I want you to make your darts and then press your darts down towards the body of your dress. Okay, now I want you to grab pattern piece 5 and 6, which is our upper and our lower ruffle, and you're going to finish your hem. You're going to serge, or you could do a double fold for a narrow hem. I am doing a serge at the bottom, and then I'm just turning under and doing a narrow hem, sort of like I've done here. And you can see that I've finished both hems on both pieces. And then once you do that, you're going to lay them over the top of each other, and I want you to baste them. So you're going to go to your sewing machine, and you're going to baste them together along the front, along the curve, the armhole, and then down the side. Okay, so I have basted together my upper and my lower ruffle for the front of the dress, and I have done 2 rows of gathering stitches between my notches, so go ahead and do that after you've basted it together. And then we're going to use the bobbin threads, the ones underneath, right on the wrong side, to pull and create our gathers. And now we're going to fit this onto our front. So I want you to do both your front ruffles the same way for both sides of your dress. Then you're going to grab your front, and you're going to place your ruffle over the top, matching your notches, matching your armhole and your side. Go ahead and pin. And then if you need to make your top fit a little bit more, you can pull on your gathers some more until they're the same size. Adjust your gathers evenly, and now I want you to go ahead and baste this on to your top. Okay, so I went ahead and basted my side and on my side and the top, just so I could have it all nicely in place. And then I want you to take your yoke, and you're going to align that single notch that's on your yoke to the body of your dress, and we're going to pin. Make sure both your notches are aligned. And you're going to stitch across using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, just like I've done here. And then I want you to go ahead and press your seams up towards the top. And you have the option of top stitching if you wish to top stitch. I'm not going to be top stitching on mine because I don't want top stitching for my red dress. But like I said, you have that option. Go ahead and press your seams up, and then if you choose to, go ahead and top stitch. Okay, now once you have both your yokes attached, I want you to go ahead and align them just to make sure that your ruffles end at the same place. so and that your seam lines also match, because when you attach your buttons and your button band, you don't want your ruffles to be off. So just double check for that. Now you're going to set these aside, and we're going to grab the back piece, which was cut on the fold, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to gather between your notches just like we did for our ruffles. So go ahead and gather between your notches. We're going to pull our gathering stitches, and then you're going to pin and attach your yoke the same way that we did for our dress. Right sides facing, stitch 5/8 of an inch, and then press your seams up. Okay, as you can see, I gathered in between my notches. I attached my yoke to the back, and I went ahead and serged my seam allowance. You can either serge your seam allowance if you have a serger, or you can zigzag or use pinking shears to finish off the inside of your garment. Now we're going to set this aside, and we're going to grab our pockets. Now you should have 4 of these. We're going to attach these to each front and to both sides of our back piece. So on both your front pieces, you should have 2 dots and a notch. This is where your pockets are going to be aligned. So you're going to grab one of your pockets, and you want right sides facing, so the right side of your pocket and the right side of your dress. And you're going to match up your notch and pin. And using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to stitch your pocket down to your dress. And you're going to do that for both your front pieces. And then on your back, you have the same thing on each side. You should have 2 dots. You should have 2 dots and a notch. So you're going to also pin both your pocket pieces to each side of your back. Stitch them down again using 1/4 inch seam allowances. Okay, so all of your pockets should be sewn to the sides of your dress, right? Both of your front pieces and both sides of your back piece. And then I want you to press your pocket out, right? So your seam allowance is being pressed out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to place front to back, right sides facing, and we're going to pin down the side seam and around our pocket. So I want you to pin matching your single notch. And lay your pockets over each other. And then I'm going to pin a couple times all the way down the side seam. I'm going to put a pin where both of my dots are, because we're going to start and stop at these markings. And then I want you to pin it around your pocket. You also have notches on your pocket, right? So you want to make sure that you're aligning your notches on your pocket. And you're going to do that to both your sides. I've already done this side. And now what you're going to do is you're going to start sewing at the bottom. You're going to back stitch, and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to sew all the way up until you get to your first dot. You're going to back stitch, cut your threads, and you're going to start again here. You're going to back stitch at this dot, and you're going to continue sewing until you reach the top, and then you're going to back stitch there as well. Once you've done that, you're going to then sew around your pocket. Now I'm going to show you this on the sewing machine. Okay, so starting at the hem, we're going to back stitch. Now we're at the first dot. I want you to back stitch. Cut your threads and move up. Back stitch at your dot. Now we're going to sew around our pocket. Starting at my lower dot, I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to back stitch again at the dot. You're going to sew your other side seam and pocket the same way. And once you're done, go ahead and finish your edges, your seam allowances, and go ahead and press your seam allowance and your pocket to the front of your dress, the way I've done here. And now what I want you to do is to finish off your shoulders, so right side's facing, of course. Pin your shoulders, aligning that single notch, and stitch across the top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to do both shoulders. Okay, once your shoulders are sewn, and then of course finish off your seam allowance, we're going to go ahead and finish the hem of our dress. So I went ahead and serged mine, and I'm going to just turn up 2 inches. I'm going to press all the way around and then stitch close to the edge. Now if you want to, you have the option of turning and pressing a 1/4 inch, and then pressing your 2 inches, and then of course stitching close to the edge. How you want to finish it is up to you. So go ahead and press your 2-inch hem allowance and then stitch all the way across your hem. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and get your placket. And what we're going to do is, you should have that one side that was unnotched interfaced. So along that fold line, I want you to press it. You're going to do the same thing for both sides, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to pin it to the front of our dress. Now normally we pin right sides facing, but we're actually going to be pinning the right side of your placket to the wrong side of your front. And so go ahead and align your notch, so you should have a notch on your placket and also on your dress. And your placket is going to extend past your dress, okay, so that is on purpose. You can see, if you have marked your dots, that your dot on the bottom of your hem aligns to the dot that's on your placket. And now you're going to go ahead and you're going to stitch this all the way down using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to pin your placket the same way to the other front. Okay, once you've sewn your placket, I want you to press your seam allowances towards the placket the way you see here. And now we're going to finish off the bottom before we pin the rest of our placket in place. So what I want you to do is, with the right side of the placket facing you, it's the wrong side of the dress, but the right side of the placket, I want you to fold it onto itself in half, and we're going to stitch across the bottom. You're going to trim half of this off, and then when you turn it to the right side, like this, right? We're right back to the right side of our dress. Okay, so you finished off the bottom and you clipped, and so you're going to turn it to the inside, and you want to make sure and push out that corner. And now what we're going to do is we're back to the right side of the dress, so we're going to fold over our placket so that you're pinning just past your seam. So if you're looking at it this way, you have your stitching line, right? So you want to make sure that you're barely just passing that, and that's where you're going to pin. Now the more pins you use, the better it will be to keep your placket even all the way down. And you want to pin all the way up your placket the way I've done here. And as you can see, I have pins all the way up my placket, and the more pins you use, the easier it will be to make sure that it's even as you're stitching. And now what you're going to do is, once you have them both pinned the way that you see here, we're going to stitch close to the edge all the way down. Okay, we're going to back stitch at the beginning. And you're going to sew close to the edge, pulling your pins out as you get to them. Back stitch at the end. And you're gonna do the same thing to your other placket. Okay, now that we have our plackets finished, we're gonna set this aside for just 1 second. I want you to grab your collar, and you should have 2 pieces, one interfaced, one that's not interfaced, and with right sides facing. You're gonna lay them over the top of each other, and you're going to stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance up the sides and across the top, leaving the bottom open. Okay, now go ahead and trim the corners. And set it aside for just 1 second. I want you to go ahead and grab your interfaced band collar. And we're going to attach this to our neck. So grab your dress, and with right sides facing, you're going to match up your notch, so you have notches on your band and notches at the center back of your dress. You want to align those and pin. And then you should also have a dot. If you marked your dot, it matches up to your shoulder seam, so go ahead and pin there. And it's going to extend by 3/8 of an inch. And do the same thing on the other side. Your collar band is going to extend 3/8 of an inch. And now you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch across your collar band using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I want you to press the seam allowance to your band up towards your band, okay? And then we're going to take our collar. I have turned my collar right side out. I poked out my points and I went ahead and pressed it. And now I'm going to pin it to my collar band. And your collar band and your collar both have double notches. So you want to match up your double notches and pin. And then you should have a dot where your collar is going to end on your collar band, and pin there. And same on the other side. And pin there. Now once you have your collar pinned onto your collar band, you're going to baste your collar onto your band using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We just want to baste it, and then once we attach our second collar band piece, we'll go ahead and stitch. Now on your non-interfaced collar band, right, you should only have one left. I want you to go ahead and press 3/8 of an inch. So I want you to press up 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're going to, with right sides facing, pin it, also matching those double notches. Now we're going to sew 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around and up the collar band. Okay, we're going to backstitch at the beginning. And backstitch. Now I want you to go ahead and clip into your curves. So I went ahead and I pressed my seam allowance in towards the down towards the collar band, so it's all encased where the collar band is. Now I'm going to make sure that my collar band is just past my stitching line, and we're going to pin, but we're going to pin on the outside. And you're going to pin all along, making sure that the edge of your fabric where you folded is past your stitching line. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch. Okay, now we're going to stitch all the way around our collar band, pretty close to the edge. just go slow. And then pivot. Okay, once the collar's done, we can set this aside for just 1 second. We're going to work on our sleeve. So what I want you to do is you're going to fold right sides facing. You're going to stitch down your underarm seam, okay, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, you're going to do a narrow hem along the bottom, just the same way that you did for your front ruffle. And then you're going to gather the top between your notches. So you're going to create 2 rows of gathering stitches, just like you see we've done here. And you're going to pull to create your gathers. You're going to do both sleeves the same way. Now once you have gathered your sleeve, you're going to take your sleeve band and on the unnotched edge, right? This has 2 notches here, one edge does not have any notches. You're going to press 3/8 of an inch along the bottom, the way I've done here. And I'm going to attach it the same way that we did our placket. The right side of my placket on the wrong side of my sleeve. Now you can do it the other way where your right sides are facing, but I find it easier to top stitch this in place by doing it the same way that we did the placket. So I'm going to pin and then adjust your gather so it's the size of your band. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to trim and then turn this over and top stitch. Okay, you want to back stitch at the beginning. Now I want you to trim your seam allowance to 1/4 inch. Now I want you to fold your band over just past your stitching line and we're going to top stitch. And once we have both of our sleeves and our bands done, we're going to attach them to our dress. So you have, of course, 2 notches for the back, you have 1 notch for the front. So with right sides facing, we're going to pin at the underarm seam. And then pin matching your double notches. And at the top of the sleeve. And then you're going to pin your single notch. Now using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch down our sleeve. Okay, we're going to back stitch at the beginning. And we're using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to attach your other sleeve the same way. Okay, now we're going to finish our armhole with our bias tape. So what I want you to do is I want you to open out one end of your double fold bias tape and I want you to press it. And you're going to leave one end folded the way you see here. Okay, so we're going to pin our bias tape starting under our arm. And make sure that you move your sleeve out of the way. We're only working on the seam allowance. And you can go ahead and pin it all the way around. And you're going to make sure you have at least 5/8 of an inch overlapped. And now you're going to stitch all the way around using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And back stitch starting at under the arm and making sure that you're only catching your seam allowance. Now go ahead and trim that 3/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. Okay, now making sure that your sleeve is completely out of the way, we're going to stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now give it one final press all the way around. Now all that's left for you to do is to make your buttonholes and attach your buttons. I hope you've enjoyed this sew along. Until next time, peace.